Hey guys, it's Molly. Welcome to my channel. If you're new, I'm an artist here in South Florida. Tonight I wanted to go over the consistency of a Dutch pour using just paint and water. At the very beginning of the video, I'll do the actual painting and then you can see the dried result. And if you want to hang around and see exactly how I mixed those paints, I will put that portion at the end. We'll go into a little bit of kind of art math, don't be afraid, and what people mean when they talk about these ratios and how do you figure out the percentages. So I wanted to try to save you a little bit of time, a little bit of money, maybe a little bit of heartbreak over some failed paintings. I had a lot of people reach out to me and ask me to do this. There are a ton of other great artists out there doing it. My inspiration for this came from Rinske Douna. I will link her down below. She's the Dutch pour queen. There's a lot of other great artists doing Dutch pours as well, but I really wanted to get into the paint and water Dutch pour. So let's go. Okay, hi you guys. I hope everyone is doing lovely. I wanted to do this video because I've had a lot of questions about percentages of paint and milliliters and grams, and I just wanted to set the record straight for the way that I prepare my paints for a paint and water Dutch pour. I will say the paint and water Dutch pour, the inspiration does go to Rinske Douna. And there are a lot of other great artists out there doing their own way with Dutch pours, and I would encourage you to do your own way as well. So this is mine, adapt it, check out Rinske's channel. Canela Sirocco's been doing them. I've seen Saskia Smith doing them. So there's a ton of great artists out there doing them. But I wanted to, and check out, so the end of the video, I will have exactly how I mixed and did everything. So I'm just going to get started with this part because the end will be rather long, which was the beginning. But I wanted you guys to see the consistency. It can be a little bit thicker than this. It can be a little bit thinner than this. It's really gonna be about what paints you're using and how you want the paints to flow. So I'm gonna blow this out. I normally already have my canvas covered, but I'm gonna blow this out so that you guys can see how the paint moves. I blow on low. You see how easy the paint just glides on around? And all those ripples will kind of just settle on out once the painting has settled. So I've got this part down here. Good. Okay, so you want to make sure that you leave a thin layer. If your paint is too thick on the canvas, all your colors are going to get swallowed immediately. Okay, if the paint is too thin on there, then you're gonna have a lot of canvas showing through. So you just have to decide kind of what's right for you. So I'm gonna do the pour that I've been doing that I like, where I just kind of puddle them in different areas. And this is a vermilion. This is a primary magenta. Can't leave out the center. What was I doing there? Put a little bit of magenta here, a little bit of orange. And you'll see the white paint, as this paint settles, it's pushing the white paint out. So I know that I don't need too much paint to go around this. I'm gonna drizzle some of the gold on through here. I'm gonna pour the paint around just a tiny little bit, because really what I'm doing, this paint that I poured around the outside is to help push the paint in different directions. So when I swipe over, I'm gonna swipe a little bit of the white and I'm gonna swipe the colors across each other. You don't wanna swipe too much. You don't want to have your blow dryer straight down and swipe too much, because when you do that, it muddies all the colors up together. So I'm going to swipe over, and I'm on low again. And you see what happens immediately? Oh my gosh, this is gorgeous. I hope that you guys can see that. It's absolutely beautiful like this. So at this point, let me grab my torch. I'm gonna torch just for any air bubbles, see what's going on. And then from here, I'm just gonna blow out and create a design. Now you can make this, at this point, you can do whatever you like. So like, I don't like this little part right here. I might blow just a little. You can do whatever you want to make your painting the way that you want it. Maybe I might blow out just a little bit right there. And I can tell I have a pretty good amount of paint puddled right here, but that's okay. This ends up drying flat. I like that that didn't go off. I think I'm gonna like this I like this composition the way it is. It kind of bloomed out like that. I really like it. It's very pretty. So the paints aren't too thick that they're running all over the place, okay? And, oh, I had a little thing here. And I still got beautiful lacing and cells. I'm using Amsterdam paints, all Amsterdam except for my metallic. And that's how I get the best reaction, is using 1 or 2 different brand paints along with the Amsterdam. And I've been using Amsterdam white. I've been loving that. And so this paint is not really moving around because I've got it the right consistency. So I'll take you down and show you, and then you guys make sure, drop me any questions that you have in the comments. Make sure you check out the end of the video, because the end of the video is gonna have exactly how I mixed this. Hopefully you guys can replicate it, and please let me know in the comments, and I'll be right back. I must say, this is probably one of my favorite color combinations. I'm so happy that I chose these colors. Look at the cells that are in that. So you guys as well, find me on Instagram. I'm Molly's Artistry 6. Find me on Facebook from my Facebook page, and show me if you guys do this with this mixture, and let me know. All right, so onward to the mixing portion. Thanks, guys. Here it is. It's beautiful. Look at that. Would ya just look at it? You guys know I'm excited, right? So, oh, the detail. And it dried flat. I don't know if you guys could see it on the camera before, that it was not, it was a little bit raised, the paint, but once the paint dries, it dries perfectly flat. But it's just gorgeous. So if you guys want to stick around, I'm gonna show you how I mix the consistency of the paint so that you can get this type of design. Super happy about it. You guys let me know what you think. All right, guys, so this is the learning part of the video. When I'm using paint and water, I use Amsterdam for the most part. Standard series. The Expert series, I believe, is a little bit thicker, so I use standard series. Now, what I'm gonna say here is if you're using different paints, you're gonna have to make this your own. You're gonna have to figure it out. And I would start maybe with these ratios, but just know if you're using craft paint, you may have to, or thinner based paints, you may have to add less water. If you're using thicker paints, you may have to add more water. So the brand of paint that you're using matters. It is not one size fits all here. As well, the color matters. Each pigment has a different density. And so the purple, I may need a few more drops of water than the magenta or the orange that I'm using here. So each brand and each color within a brand may vary a little bit. So that's why it's really difficult sometimes to tell you guys an exact measurement, but I figure I'll just do it and you guys can see me do it and then you can make your own. Now in my original videos, I was saying because I eyeball 30% water, and I'll show you how I get to that percentage here. Yes, we're going to do a little bit of math. Don't be mad at me. But I realized when doing the video lessons and really walking people through it and actually doing these measurements, it's more around 40% of water. I know some of you may, I don't want anybody to freak out about saying 40% water. I'm actually going to post a link to Just Paint, which is it's a blog by Golden, where they say you can add upwards of 50+% water and you don't have adhesion problems. Now, with that said, that's for their type of paint, their brand of paint, but I've been doing this a while and I know that Amsterdam is the same way. I don't have a problem when I mix this much water with Amsterdam. I cannot guarantee if you're using other paints that you may not get, that you won't get cracking or something like that. So if you're getting cracking or your pigments are breaking down because of too much water, it is likely due to the brand of paint that you're using. Okay, so with all of that said, I'll show you the measurement and how I get to that. So there's a couple of different things. When someone talks about in a video, say you look below a video and it says ratio of parts 1:2. This is normally paint to pouring medium, okay? And what they're saying is whatever part you choose, say you choose 10 milliliters here, okay? Then you're gonna use 20 milliliters here. Or if it's in grams. If you're working in grams, stay in grams, right here. If you're working in milliliters, stay in milliliters. Don't go back and forth because some paints, density-wise, will not weigh the same for how many milliliters there are. You could have 100 milliliters of white paint and that may weigh something different than 100 milliliters of a different type of paint. It also weighs something different than 100 milliliters of water. One milliliter of water normally is 1 gram, but for other paints that have different densities, which are measured off of the water, they may be different. So don't mix between the two. Neither one is wrong. Just if you're working in grams, stick in grams. If you're working in milliliters, stick in milliliters. I hope that makes sense. So again, these are estimates, so find out what works for you. But what I do is I take, so is over of equals percent over 100. This is, it like takes me back to like, I don't know, elementary school or something. So what I'm going to show you guys is that I use 30 and 20, okay? So 30 milliliters of paint is what I use, which is down here, that's my B. So I use 30 milliliters of paint. And I use 20 milliliters of water, okay? Add those mils together and you get 50 total milliliters of mixture. That 20 milliliters of water, you want to find out how much water is the percentage to this total mixture. And this right here equals your percent over 100. So what I do is I cross multiply. So I have 2000 divided by 50, and that gives me my percentage, which is 40%. You can work your way backwards or forwards with this. But if you were to do it this way, then you would simply say 20 over 30 gives you your percent over 100, and I just know that that's 2/3, which is 66%, okay? I work off of this ratio because I like to know how many total milliliters of volume that I have. But these are 3 different ways that you may hear artists talk about their ratios. So if you're having difficulty achieving a painting and someone's telling you a specific ratio of something, you may just not be calculating it the way they're calculating it. I would reach out to them and ask them, did you mean that this was per the total volume, percentage per total volume, or percentage of the paint, or were you talking about it in parts? So, but all of these are scalable. So if you wanted to make 100 milliliters, you could scale this by just doubling everything. So here it would be 60 milliliters of paint and 40 milliliters of water. And you could get the same consistency, but with a larger volume. Okay, so this is scalable, all right? So clear as mud, right? So I'm just gonna mix it and show you. So I have this on my scale, so it's zeroed out, it's in milliliters. I put this on the scale and you wanna zero it out again. I'm gonna take my stir stick and my paint, and this is Amsterdam Standard Series, and I'm just gonna put till I get to 30 milliliters of paint in there, roughly. You go over by a little bit, that's okay, right? Nothing is set in stone in art. If somebody tells you that it is, I don't believe them. Okay, so that would be the same, okay, if I did this here and took the paint and squeezed it out into this 30 milliliter cup here. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna take this off, put another cup on here, zero that out. Okay, and this time I'm going to squeeze the paint out into this first. Excuse me. And you'll want to tap it if you're being very, meticulous about it. You'll want to tap it to get, and then you're just gonna, so I'm gonna do this both ways for you so that you can, some people like using the scale, some people like using measuring cups. You can't ever get exactly everything out of a measuring cup that you put into it, so sometimes it's just easier to use the scale. So you see, this actually ended up being, and I didn't even get all of this out of here, right? This ended up being 34 milliliters on my scale, even though it was 30 milliliters in the little cup here, right? And this is a dry measuring cup, so that could be why. But just keep it in mind when you're going back and forth between things. Your scale may not be calibrated exactly, so that's why this is an art, right? It's part science and part art. That's why I love it. Okay, so for this one, since I used the measuring cup, I'm going to use, this is a 15 milliliter. Okay, so I'm going to do 15. Just trying to give you all the options here. And then I'm going to do a 5, because remember I said 30 to 20 is my ideal kind of ratio. Whoops. Now what I did here was wrong, and I'll tell you why. I like to, trying to go over the camera, I like to only mix half of my water in at a time and then mix the second half of the water in. The reason why is because you may get clumps, and the clumps are very hard to get out when you're trying to thin paint with water. But you'll see, I'll keep stirring here, and it will come together, okay? There we go. And so from here, I'll look at my consistency, and I may need a couple more drops of water. I may need maybe like one more little drop of paint, but for this, I know I'm gonna need just a couple more drops of water. But again, when I put that on the scale, it was 34, not 30, right? So this one is the true 30. So this consistency right here, let me see if I can show you. See how that runs back into the cup? And it just has that tiny little bit of a triangle before it goes back into the paint. When I draw it around, see, it leaves that little mound. To me, that's just the tiniest bit too thick. So if you wanted to be very specific about it, this is a 2.5. I would maybe add a 2.5 of water in there. And you would be surprised what that tiny little amount of water will do to this mixture. So I'm going to stir this around again. And then there we go, that is right. Which makes sense to me because on the scale, it had a little bit more than 30. So that is a good consistency right there. Goes right back into the cup. Now the other thing is, and I have people do this in my classes as well, when you hold it all the way up here, you see how you can't really get a good gauge of what's going on the top of the cup? Even if I have a lot of paint on there and I hold it all the way up here, you see how it just drips right back in? That's gravity at work. So what you want to do is get a good amount on your stick and then just hold it right above the cup. That's all, right above the cup. Okay, so let me do it the other way now. So I'm going to put this on and zero it out, and that was at 30. Okay, so now I'm going to put 20 milliliters of paint in here. And again, I should have done half and half. I should be doing what I teach you guys. So if you're doing this at home, I would have only put half of the water in, stirred it up and made a slurry, then put the other half of the water in. But now I'm going to mix this on up. And you'll see, you'll get the same thing. Okay, so from doing it from those dry measuring cups or doing it on the scale, however you want to do it is okay by me, right? Hopefully it's okay by you. So let's take a look at this consistency. Do you guys see how thin that is? Let me see if I can get it good. It's thin. And that's the issue that a lot of people have, is that their paints, they say that they're not moving. The paints are super thin, okay? It still has a fluff to it, a body to it, but they're thin. So I need to mix that one a little bit better. But the other thing is that your paints may congeal a little bit as they sit there because you put water in them. If they sit there for a little while uncovered, the water may evaporate off of the top. So all you do is you just take it, you put a couple more drops of water in, and that's all. That's it. And then you stir it back again. So if you're working with a different paint brand, I would start with that ratio unless they're very thin paints. And then I would continue adding a little bit of water until you get the consistency that you want. So let's do the purple now. I'm going to zero my scale back out. And so divide everything. So this is what I'm talking about. You can scale this. So remember I had 30 milliliters of paint and 20 milliliters of water, right? And that gave me my 40% total volume to the total volume water content. Or you could just do, it's, 2/3, right? So I'm going to do here half of that. So I'm going to do 15 milliliters of paint and I'm going to do 10 milliliters of water. And that's how you scale downward, right? So let me get my scale to measure. Uh-oh, doesn't look like it's measuring here. Hold on. Hold on a minute. Okay, so now I'm going to put my paint in here. Let's see if it registers this time. There we go. Just a little bit more. Getting to 15. There we go. And you can always stop a little bit before because it will register on your scale for a little bit. Okay, and then we said, so 15, so I'm gonna do 10 of water. So we'll go to 25. 25 total. There we go. And if I put another drop in there, like look, still at 25, right? So that's what I'm saying. You've got to play around with it. You know, 25, all those drops matter when you're talking about the consistency. So here, I'm just going to mix this up. And I know that the purple normally needs a little bit more water. When you're stirring, I beat it like an egg, basically. And then you want to make sure that you go around every so often and scrape your sides. So this consistency here, purple was probably not the best because it's kind of hard to see. But you see, that's a little bit thick. And I just know that the purple pigment needs a little bit more paint. Okay, and don't take this measurement if you're watching the video now because my stick is in there, okay? So I added probably another couple milliliters of of water. So that's what I'm saying. This is not an exact science. And that's why I really wanted to do this video, because telling people, first off, the 30% was wrong. It's 40%. But that's still just an average. It's not, every color is different. So that's getting there, but I'm still gonna add another milliliter or two of paint. I keep saying of paint, of water. Clear as mud, right? Glad I wasn't a math teacher. Kudos to you guys. So now, that looks pretty good. Let me see if I can hold it down here. I know that's probably tough for you guys to see. Okay. So, I'll do one more color for you. And I just know from working with these that the Amsterdam white that's in these big jugs, it's creamier than the colors. So the colors are gonna take a little bit more water to, every time I say paint in this, just insert water. So it's gonna take a little bit more. You see how thick that is? I'm just making it register on there. It's gonna take a little more water for it to loosen up. That's good enough. So I'm gonna go to 25, but I know from doing the purple, I'm probably gonna go to about 27. There we go. And like I said, so watch this. Still dropping in water, and it's still at 27. Right? So now that just changed over, but it's just something to keep in your mind when you're working in such, you've really got to get your consistency down to where you can feel what it is, because it may take more drops, less drops. It's really, the science part can only get you so far in this. The rest of it has to come from just feel and experience. So, and I think maybe even my scale might have been a little bit off on that one. So see, I need even more water for the orange. So I'm just gonna pour in a little more water. And I'm gonna keep going until I get the same consistency for the white that I had for the purple. So that is pretty good. It's not stirred in all the way, but for the sake of the video, see how that's just pours right back in. And I know for Amsterdam paints, when I get that little bubble at the end, it's the right consistency. See that little bubble? Yep. That tells me that that surface tension, that's the right consistency. So that is how I do that. So once you get all these together, now comes the drip test. The drip test is where I put a little bit of paint lying flat. And I've done this in my consistency video too to show you guys. Put a little bit of white. The white definitely seems a little bit thinner than the rest of them. For the way that I do Dutch pours, I have them normally about the same. Sometimes the white may be a little bit thinner, but for the most part, they're the same consistency. So now, see, my colors are good. See how much thinner my white is? So I might even add another couple mils to these. So I can do that while I'm here. While we're here doing this, right? So this is the process to actually getting your paints the right consistency for a Dutch pour. And again, these milliliters and these measurements may not work for you if you're using different paints. But I just want you to see how thin they are, because a lot of people just have their paints way too thick. And I would also make sure that your scale is calibrated appropriately. Okay. Maybe just one more little bit of water here. So I would maybe do a test like this of a bunch of different, if you're really going to be systematic about it. Get your consistency for your white. That's almost always the same. Then I would take a bunch of colors that you use and do this test on them. So now I'm going to come over here. I'll turn this around. So I'm going to put my purple. And you want to get a good amount. It's not going to run. You're not going to have a test if you don't get a good amount of each on the paper. And then I'll have my white. That's pretty good. So those started to run almost the same, okay? So that tells me that I've got my paints pretty much a good consistency, and I can go ahead and I can pour. So I am now, you've already seen it, and I hope it turned out amazing. But I'm gonna go ahead and take these and then make the painting. So let me get all set up. And I thank you guys for sticking around. I hope this was helpful. Drop your comments into the comment box below. Don't forget to like, subscribe. It supports my channel. Thank you so much to all that have supported my channel. Share this if you think this information is valuable for anyone else. And thank you guys so much for everything that you do. All right, you guys, thanks for watching. Happy painting.